just joined us, this is My Career, My Calling. And we are live in the studio at Down on the Radio. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I can assure you that we've got an amazing program lined up for you on this another edition of My Career, My Calling. Wherever you are listening in from, whether you are at home looking after the dinner, driving home in the traffic, or just relaxing somewhere, thank you for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening in the studio with me is none other than the Reverend himself, Reverend Ebenezer Agyare Armah. And I am looking forward to an amazing time with Rev in the studio. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Steph.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I'm really excited about our time together this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great, great, great. You're going to hear a lot more from Pastor Ebenezer later on in the program. But right now, let's get to the matter of our business this evening. What we have been doing on this program, we have been sharing personal experiences supported by facts and information that can help one another to overcome some of the struggles that people often experience as migrants in particular when trying to succeed in the Australian workplace. This evening, we will be talking about students in the workplace. Remember, you can send your feedback via Facebook as well on the live stream, or you may call us in studio at 612-8007. Sorry, that's 612-8006-0475. Before we get into that, I just want to let you know that this program is sponsored by I Care Community Services, a premium provider of disability and multicultural community support services. If you need support coordination, or if you need support for your family member, relative, child, partner, whoever, NDIS support services, I Care Community Services are willing and able to assist you. All right, yes, we are here in studio on My Career, My Calling, and I've got in studio no other person than Reverend Ebenezer Agyare Armah. And it's been amazing having you here this evening, Rev. Rev, before I get into, what I've prepared, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you came to Australia and what you're currently doing?
Thank you so much for tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I want to thank you for inviting me, and also thank all the crew members, the people who are working on the productions, and of course the CEO of this great radio. I'm talking about the bishop himself, and the Mama Bishop. We call him the Mama Bishop. All right, so I came to Australia in 2015. February 2015, and I came through the Ministry of the Youth with a Mission, where I did service with them, and that was 2015 when I arrived in Australia, and I've been here since, and now going into school.
Great. I will let you tell us a little bit more about your experiences and your time with Youth with a Mission in a little while.
Definitely, I will.
All right, thank you so much. So this evening, as I promised, that I was going to give you some information about working while studying in Australia. And as you know, we've got a student who is an active student here to help me with this discussion this evening. And so remember, you can call us on 612-8006-0475, and we will try to respond to your questions or your comments during the program. So as a student in Australia, there are quite a few things that you need to know. A lot of people might not realize or understand that it is in most student visas, there is provision for you to work when you come to Australia. And there are great benefits for working, while you're studying. And I mean, what better place to get work experience than in Australia? when you're working, while you're studying, if you have a job, this can help to complement your study and your living experience. Well, that has been my experience, working in Australia as a student really enriched my life and opened my eyes so much to so much greater things about Australian way of life and Australian work policies and so on. It also, every student can always do with a little extra pocket money. And for those of us who are coming from overseas, it's always important to have a little extra in our pockets. So having a job as a student, there are many, many benefits. And of course, gaining work experience as a student is very important. So most students who come to Australia, they will have a student visa. And as I said before, the student visa will allow you to work for up to 40 hours every 2 weeks or every fortnight while your course is in session. However, outside of the session, for example, on holidays or breaks, you can actually work full time. So this is something that people might not realize or understand, that you can actually work on your student visa. So it's really important, however, that you check what rights you have on the visa, because this will be stipulated in the fine prints. So it's really important to read that and make sure that you understand what right to work is included in your visa. And all of this information can be found on the Department of Home Affairs website. Now, in terms of working in Australia, you can get paid work, you can do volunteer work, and you can do internships. Now, last week we mentioned about volunteering and how important it is for people who are struggling to find jobs, that volunteering is actually a really good way to gain the work experience that employers are looking for. A few weeks ago on the program, we talked about how we did a survey, and every single person said the one big main challenge is when you apply for a job, people ask for work experience, and how can you get it? Volunteering is actually a very, very important way of getting work experience. It is recognized by workplaces in Australia. And so if you can't find a paid job, then start volunteering, and that will open many doors. So many charities and non-governmental organizations in Australia, they always need volunteers to help out. And they are always very happy to give you a reference afterwards. It's a great way to meet people, and it's a great way to get hands-on experience and to start to understand some of the work-related policies like work health and safety, specific things that are quite common across the entire Australian workforce. It's a great way to give back to the community as well. And if you really want to read up more about volunteering, you can go to this website called www.govolunteer.com.au, and this will provide quite a bit of information. Now, we have in studio a volunteer extraordinaire. One of the things that when I first met Pastor Ebenezer in 2015, I was really struck by his volunteerism and his work that he has done, especially through the Youth with a Mission. And today, I really wouldn't mind if Pastor Eben would really share some of his experiences with YWAM. I know you have volunteered overseas in other countries with YWAM as well. And if you could tell us about your experience as a volunteer and how that has helped you to understand the Australian workplace, work policies, and your rights to work as a volunteer or as a worker in the Australian workplace. If you don't mind sharing some of that with me, thanks.
Wow, thank you. 2015, when I arrived, I started doing the volunteering work, our service with Youth with a Mission. And basically what I was involved in Youth with a Mission, we have different departments.
Yes.
Like we have the hospitality department, we have kitchen department where we prepare the meal, we have department who takes care of the grounds, and then we have, of course, all of us are involved in missions and evangelism. And so first and foremost, I was part of the hospitality team, and then I joined the kitchen, where I volunteered for almost 1 year.
Wow.
Yes, and I was part of it. It's such an amazing time to be there. Quite apart from the fact that it's a Christian organization that really reach out to people and the community and the world at large, it also helps you to build your spiritual life. They will help you to really take advantage of your time being there to engage in worship, engage in study of the word, get to know other people, different people from all walks of life. And so it's for me personally, it really helped me to adapt to the culture in Australia. And as we progress, there are a few things I'll be sharing with regards to the experience that I gathered with youth with the mission.
Wow, thank you so much, Pastor Eben. I really appreciate that. Your volunteering experience has created opportunities for you to learn about, the multicultural nature of Australia and Australia's workplace.
Exactly.
And one of the motivation of why we are doing this program is really about fostering integration.
Yes.
It's really, we believe that if we provide information to people on how they can actually succeed in the workplace, it will help people to better integrate in the workplace and to succeed, to do well at what they do. And so we feel that if we give people, if we empower people to do well in the workplace, then people will actually integrate better into the Australian society.
Sure.
And some of the issues that we have around integration, that can actually bridge some of that gap. And so in terms of your volunteering experiences, YWAM is quite an international organization.
Yeah, it's a worldwide organization.
Yeah, but in Australia, I know that even worldwide organizations still have to comply with Australian policies.
Yes.
So in terms of, as a volunteer, give us an understanding. When you go to work, did you get a contract, or you had to go? You have to maintain certain work hours. Just a little, just like, or how would it compare to going to work?
Okay, basically it's the same.
Yeah.
Going to work.
Yeah.
The first thing that you have to do once you decide to volunteer in Australian community is to get working with a children's card. That's the very first thing I was introduced to.
Explain that to us a little bit.
When I got here, the school administration had a kind of orientation for us.
Yes.
And they explained to us the importance of getting that kind of certificate or the card to be with you. It's a time when they check your background. They know whether you have abused the child before, because one of the things that is really important in this society is people who are very safe for children to come around.
Yes.
And so they check all these. They have all the criteria, and I'm not a lawyer, so I wouldn't go into that.
So it's really important. So even as a volunteer, they will still require, because we mentioned some of this in our previous talk about preparing for work.
Okay.
So that if you're working in certain professions, or if you have to work with children or vulnerable people, then they will ask you to do a working with children's check. To check your background to see if you're a pedophile or you're an abuser of children and so on. So what you are saying is that even as a volunteer, this still applies to you.
It is very important. And that was the first thing introduced to me.
Yeah.
And after I got that one, then there's a specific number that is given to you.
Yeah.
And with that, now you are free to go to the schools to share. We used to do something we call breakfast with the kids. And so we go to the school, we share breakfast with the kids, we play with them, and I juggle the football with them because I play soccer. And it was such a fun time to be with them. And so the first thing that was introduced to me was working with the children's certificates, and I got that one. And now in the morning, I wake up in the morning, basically it starts from 6 a.m. And 6 a.m. we are awake, we go for our morning session of time of prayer and worship. And then after 9 o'clock, everybody goes to your department. Like if you are working in a social or in the community where you normally would do, we go to our department. And in the department, the itineraries, the work ethics, there's so many things there that you need to familiarize yourself with before you'll be able to, and it helps you to integrate into the system.
Exactly.
Because for all you know, we have come from different backgrounds, and the work culture and the ethics of our individual culture is different.
Yes.
As compared to another nation.
Yeah.
And Youth with a Mission is an international organization. People coming from all walks of life.
Yes.
And so much as we have orientation, there are other ethics that binds us together, that brings us together. There are other things that really put a boundaries as to things you can do and the things you are not able to do. And so we go to our different departments, and then you are engaged in, and we take a break like any other work goes for lunch break, and we go for dinner at any time, and we finish work at 5 as
if you were going to another work.
Exactly. So
awesome. So basically what you are saying is, as a volunteer, so it's really important to understand that as a volunteer, you're not just treated anyhow.
No.
So the experience that you get is quite similar as if you were going to pay the work.
Exactly. So as a volunteer, you go straight, you do whatever you do. You don't just go with a definition of volunteer, and so I just go there and do whatever I please and then I walk out. No, you don't do that. You are working as serious as someone who's doing a paid work.
I'm happy to hear that, because sometimes, as you said, because we're from very varied backgrounds, we might think that, in my country, if I'm volunteering, I can rock up whenever I want and leave whenever I want and dress anyhow and behave anyhow.
No, you can't do that.
But in Australia, if you are volunteering in an organization, it is as good as if you had a paid job.
Yes.
The only difference is that you don't have a pay.
You don't have a pay.
You don't get paid.
Yes.
However, the long-term benefits, they are long-term benefits. And before I come and ask you about some of those benefits, Pastor Eben, I want to touch on paid work. Okay. So as a student, you can get paid work. As I outlined before, that based on your visa conditions, you are able to work. Most students are able to work for about 40 hours per fortnight.
Exactly.
Yeah, and these things are monitored actually by your school, because of the school actually has an obligation to monitor that. Yeah. So, and one of the things about Australia is that a lot of organizations in Australia, they actually make room for students. Yeah. Because a lot of the Australian workforce comes from the student population. So students are kind of like seasonal workers, always coming and going, but there's always an abundance of students, because Australia is like a center for education globally. Yeah. And even in the Asia Pacific region, people come to Australia to study. So, somebody might feel intimidated coming to Australia, like myself. When I was coming to Australia, to be honest, I didn't know much about Australia. I came here as a student as well. So I'm a bit qualified to talk about this topic.
Exactly.
So I came here as a student, and I remember, I was coming to do advanced studies. I was doing a PhD, but my professor was saying, I was so overwhelmed. And he was like, you just get here. All you need to do is get here, and you will, something will come up. And when I got here, I actually realized that there was an abundance of opportunities. And even if you're a professional, even as an advanced professional, if you have existing qualifications or professional work experience, people actually look for that. And in many universities actually will offer you a job in your field, or they might point you to an organization that will be happy to take you on as a professional doing part-time work. And the other thing that I really want to stress is that they actually pay you. Yeah. They pay you at the same rate that they would have paid a local person. Sure. I started working as a project manager in my first job, and I was paid according to the national standard. They didn't say, she's a student from overseas, so we can take advantage of her. They paid me as how they would have paid a local project manager. So it's really important for those who are coming to understand that there are opportunities available and that they should not be intimidated. I know you volunteered for a while, but then you transitioned to become a student, almost a full-time student. And so you worked part-time. So tell me, some of the differences now that you started to work, or some of the issues that are slightly different. for you now that you have to juggle work and study?
Study at the same time. Um, it's very difficult, and I need to be very honest.
Yes.
Working and studying at the same time, especially if you are studying at the level where I am studying, it's very difficult because you have a lot of assignments and you have to go to work. And if you are a family person, or you have a
family,
wife and you have a child or you have children, then there is another responsibility on top of it. And so I wouldn't sit here and say it's easy. No matter how we call it shark your brains are, it's very demanding. And I think what I keep telling myself is that one thing, something that someone has been able to do, another person can achieve it.
Yes.
And so you just have to position yourself, rearrange your time, and really get on the street and start running. You can work and you can study. You have a limited hours to work, and once you are able to adapt yourself, and that is what one of the things that really makes the volunteering a very, very important matter. For me, the advantage I had was the fact that I after volunteering, I have now been accustomed to the culture of Australian workforce.
Yes.
I know how it means to work here. And so going to work, having that limited hours to work, and even before I became a student, yes, I had work and I was working, and so I knew how to be able to do that, and also because I've been part of the system for almost a year.
Yes.
And so my genetic factors have been accustomed to the workforce. And I used to have a friend who said something to me, and I was not very comfortable when he started saying it. He said, in Australia, you work smart, you don't work hard. And I wasn't very comfortable with that. And until we started working, and sometimes we go to work and I realized that I'm so tired. I exert a lot of energy working. And he is doing the same thing, exactly the same thing. And he looks so fresh, and yet we are achieving the same results.
Wow.
And that really brought my attention to the fact that he always will say you work smart and you don't work hard. I struggle to understand that though.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I realized why he says the things that he said at the time.
Yeah.
And so it is very difficult when you have a 2,500 word essay to deliver, and you have to submit assignment on time, and you have to go to work, and you have to do things. But what someone has been able to do, another person can also do it. And so all that you need to do is to be able to adjust your time and adapt to the system. It's a very pacey system.
Yes.
Everybody is running. Nobody has time for anything. Everybody is running. Nobody has time to waste or to spend. And so you really will have to psych yourself, position yourself to be able to do it. And so that is what I have done up until now.
Yeah.
And it hasn't been easy, but I'm still on it.
Awesome. So what I'm getting from what Pastor Eben is saying is that it's about the mindset again. This word keeps coming up, having the right mindset and balancing.
Yes.
Making sure you have a work-life balance, as the Australians like to call it.
Yes.
Making sure that you pay adequate amount of attention to the work itself, but also to your family and your personal needs. And it's really, really important for well-being. One of the things that a lot of people do get stressed. I saw in the news this week that some people were talking about, I just saw a quick news headline, and it said that a lot of students actually go without food. A lot of students go for extended time without food. And trust me, I think all of us at some point in time have been there, but can't stress enough how important it is to have a healthy work-life balance.
Yeah.
Here we are. If you have just joined us, you have tuned in to My Career, My Calling on Down on the Radio. Thank you for joining us. We are here in the studio with Pastor Ebenezer, and we are having a great conversation about working as a student in Australia. many of us came to this great country as students, and we have come up, as there's a song that says, I've come up on the rough side of the mountain. Many of us, we have come up on the rough side of the mountain as a student. But that said, the experiences have been amazing and priceless. Yeah. Whether we were volunteering or working part-time, while I was studying, I had some of my friends, other PhD students were packing bags in Coles, cashiers at Coles. I have a friend who was a chef doing part-time cooking in a restaurant. So the opportunities are just almost endless. But some people actually find it quite difficult to find a job as a student. Sometimes it's not that a lot of people, well, if you come to Australia to study, it means that you are top-notch. Yeah. So it means that you are good quality. But some people just don't know how to find a job, or they don't realize that they can actually get work, and so I know you have had to do quite a varied amount of different things, and there has been challenges along the way.
Of course.
So some people will say, it's difficult, as you have said, to balance the family life, the studying, the assignments, but how do you balance that up?
Yes, I think everybody has a priority, and once you decide to be a student, family is very important. Yeah. But within that time, for whatever duration you have to study, I think that must also be the topmost priority. Because you, as an international student, one of the things that we need to understand, probably make it clear, is the fact that you, as an international student, my privileges or the opportunity I have is different from an indigenous Australian student. Some of them, they can just decide to just take on one unit, and then they do it for a whole semester or half a semester. But as an international student, it is an obligation to be on, I think, 4 units.
Yes.
And so you can graciously, you have the first 2 units and then another 2 units so the semester is divided into 2. You have very first 2 units and then 2 units at the end of the day. So the challenges are there, but they are very difficult.
So hang on, can I just stop you a minute?
Yes.
So as part of your visa requirements as an international student,
yes,
there are specific requirements in terms of your workload.
Yes.
That's what you are saying.
Yeah, the workload.
So you can't just decide that I just want to do one subject.
No, you can't.
Yes. So
you don't have that luxury. if we do have that luxury, I think some of us would have adapted to that. But we don't have it, unfortunately. We don't have it. So that's it. You have to be on a full load.
Yeah.
And so you have all these, you have to attend. You have the number of days that you have to be in class.
Yeah.
You can't just absent yourself from class.
Yeah. Whenever you please, you can just rock up.
No, you can't do that. It's when you do that, you also fraud the immigration policy and the regulation that you have.
Yes, because I know that I once heard about a situation where someone didn't go to their class for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
Somebody shared this with me about their own personal experience. Yeah. And basically, the university is obligated to notify immigration that you have only attended X amount of hours out of the overall total. So as a student, it's really important to understand that, yes, while you have the opportunity to work, but you can't just go to work and forget about school.
No.
It doesn't matter how bright you are.
And that is why it is your priority.
Yes.
Yes. That is why it is your priority. So you can be the most brilliant student in class, but you still have to be there. And so once you fulfill that requirement, then you have peace to live.
Yeah.
You can study, you can work, and nobody really put pressure on you to do anything in this country. Once you are legal, you are in.
Yeah.
And so the challenges are there. You have to pay your fees on time. You have to pay your fees on time. You have to be in class. You have to pass your assignments or your course requirement. You have to satisfy the course requirement, because once you also fail, the consequences are a lot when you fail. For example, if I'm doing 2 units and I fail the 1 unit or 2, it prolongs my years of studying. So instead of probably studying for 2 years, it goes, because you have to, some of the subjects, you have to pass the phase 1 or level 1 before you go to level 2.
Yes.
So if you fail level 1, then
you can't progress.
You can't progress.
Wow.
So you definitely will have to ensure that you pass, and that's why it becomes a top-notch priority for you to be able to, as a student. So these are part of the challenges. Another challenge that we have as an international student is the fact that some of the things that are required, sometimes it is even required you satisfy those requirements before you get in.
Yes.
For example, the health insurance, which is massive
Yes,
thing
yes,
you have
yes.
to. And even when you are sick and you cannot go to school, the school authorities demand that you submit a doctor's report that notifies that you were sick, and of course you have a valid reason why you couldn't attend class at the time.
So basically, you have to produce sick leave, as if you were going to work.
As if you were going to work.
Because these things are quite important and seen, taken very seriously. And all of this is in the whole package of being an international student. If you don't mind, I want us to focus on what I will call a contentious issue.
Okay.
And it's about the rights that people have.
Okay.
So I think I want to make it very clear that it doesn't matter whether you're on a visa. If you work in Australia, you have rights, just as any other employee in a workplace.
Yes.
And from time to time, you hear things about people not being treated well, or people might take advantage of people because they know that they're an international student or they're on a visa. So it's really important for students to actually understand that they also have rights. The same rights that any other employee in the workplace has, in terms of their wages, in terms of if you are working in a full-time position, whether you're on a contract. So, in Australia, they talk about FTE, full-time equivalent.
Yes.
So you might actually be offered a contract for a job. Like, for example, I had a contract job where I got a contract for 2 years, but I worked only 14 hours per week. So that makes me a full-time employee. So I was working for 0.4 FTE. So 0.4 full-time equivalent. So that means I work 2 days out of the week.
Okay.
So, but as a full-time employee, I have entitlement to get leave.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So sick leave and so most casual jobs, you don't get entitlement for leave. So if you're employed in a casual role, then you might not get, you might not be entitled to leave.
Yeah.
So they do something called a casual loading, which means that for your salary, they might add an extra amount, which is mandatory by law, that if you employ people casually, you do what you call a casual loading. So they add an extra percentage for the fact that you don't get leave, so that if you have to take leave, then that extra money that you got takes care of the day that you don't come to work and you can't get paid.
That's true.
Yeah. But if you work in a full-time capacity or you're on a contract for a long-term job, then you are entitled to leave. But the other thing that you're entitled to is something called superannuation. Whether you are casual or full-time, every employer in Australia is entitled to pay superannuation for their employees.
Yes.
You know, and this will there is some eligibility requirement for whether your employer pays superannuation.
Yes.
But these are some things that you need to know as a student. Find out. You can ask.
Sure.
You know, and make sure if you're getting a contract that it is written, it's clearly stated what is the superannuation. And superannuation is like pension. Or they call it so many different names in different countries. It's So there's superannuation, or PAYE, some countries call it. So the government will give you a proportion of your salary towards your pension, or the a long-term fund that you can earn. But for those who pay superannuation, when you are leaving Australia, you can actually claim that money back. So once you are leaving, you can claim your super as a departing Australia superannuation payment. Yeah, and you have to meet certain requirements, and you can always find out about this by going to the Australian Taxation Office.
Yes.
They've got lots of information on their website. The other thing that as a worker you are entitled to is a safe workplace. You have to have a safe workplace.
That's very important.
Yes. And so every employer in this country has to have something that they call workers' compensation insurance. It means that if you get injured at work, the employer has a responsibility to pay you or to compensate you for the damage done to you while you're carrying out your job or while you're on the job. Yeah. So it's really important that as a student, you know these things. Because many students, like honestly, when I came to Australia,
many students doesn't know.
As for these things, who told me? Who was there? And furthermore, I didn't know about it, so I couldn't ask. But just to say that there are lots and lots and lots of things in place in Australia to ensure that the worker is protected. And even if you're a student, the government of Australia protects you. It doesn't matter if you're on XY visa.
That's true.
As long as you have the right to work and you're working in a work environment, there are policies and protections for you as a worker. And you can visit the Australian government's Fair Work Ombudsman website, or you can actually call them to find out about what are your rights as an international student working in Australia. So, Pastor Eben, our time is running away from us today. Oh, we are having such a good time here in the studio. Wow. If you are just joining us, then you have tuned in to My Career, My Calling, and we are in studio this evening with Reverend Ebenezer Agyare Armah, and we are talking about working as a student in Australia. And you might be wondering, then what is there to talk about? You would not believe it. There is so much to talk about on this topic. Yes. I'm telling you about volunteering. The other thing that I didn't mention was about internships. So a lot of organizations do offer internships where you can actually come for a short-term placement to gain work experience, and they will often write you a reference when you are finished as well. I don't know if you have anything to mention about some of what we've just said.
Yeah, that's very important. Many times there are places you go and employments or applications you submit to different places, and they want to see if you have done internship with any recognizable organization. And so once you have something like that, then they receive a letter. Sometimes they write to the place where you did an internship, trying to see your experience and the things that you have done before. Yes. Sometimes you can even apply for a job that you don't really have the requisite experience. By the fact that you've been part of the job system or the employment system, sometimes they can take you on and then train you, give you some kind of training and orientation and add you to their workforce. And so I've seen a couple of my friends. They came to Australia from different parts of the world, and they came with their experiences, and so they are able to launch out to some of these organizations for internships, and it has given them a lot of experience. I did a thing like that, and it really helped me. And for where I am now, the place I'm working now, really my volunteering didn't really impact the chance of me getting the job. But the fact that I have been part of the workforce in Australia for a time, it really gave me the opportunity to get a place where I'm working, and the place is so good that if not for visa restrictions and places, I mean, these are places you would want to work because they have amazing team, amazing team members who understand each other, and we are working together. And so, as you rightly said, if you're an international student, don't panic. I mean, even though it's very difficult, as I said, you can do it.
Yes,
you can do it. What someone has been able to do, another person can do it. And so, don't just panic. Set your priorities right, and definitely you'll be able to do it. When you begin to think about assignment, as I sit now, I know next I think on the 10th or something, I have assignment due date, and you are running a helter skelter. You want to know where to get information, and these are all part of it. But once you are prepared,
yes,
you can do it. And so don't let the work and the studying really put pressure on you and get some kind of anxieties, and even your smile is taken from your face because you are studying and at the same time working and probably taking care of family and stuff like that. No, please, you can do it, and I believe other people are doing it. Some people have done it, and so we can all do it.
Oh, amazing. Reverend Ebenezer Agyare Armah. Wow. It's been a valuable sharing of experience and insights this evening about, as a student, how you can volunteer, how you can get an internship, how you can work paid employment in Australia, and how this can help to enrich your overall experience working in Australia. Wow, we've got 5 minutes or so left on the program, and as I said before, if anyone wants to call in quickly, we happy to take one quick call before we get offline. But it's been such an amazing time talking about something that is very important to a lot of people, and I really hope that what we have shared this evening is really useful and valuable to those who are listening. As I can relate very much to what Pastor Eben has said today, because I have been a student for 3.5 years in this country, and I do understand, the challenges associated with working and, making a living to pay your bills while as a student, it's like nobody's paying your bills for you. You have to look after yourself and, maintain your reputation as a student, complete your assignments, and make sure you meet all the requirements to protect your visa as well. So it's really great. It's really a great opportunity to gain experience in this country, and I really appreciate Pastor Ebenezer for sharing his deep insights as a student, and as someone who has been a volunteer extraordinaire, and just sharing some insights with us here in the studio. Wow, it's unbelievable, man. The time has just run away from us. So just some few last minute things. If you're a student and you're on a visa in Australia, remember you can find jobs. You can find work in several different places. You can look in the newspapers. You can go online. There are many job sites. And some institutions will have job notice boards, even on your campus. You can check online, check your institution's international student support staff. I remember as a student, and I know most universities have somewhere, some career portal where they can help international students to find jobs. And register your details with a recruitment agency, because many of them will help you to find casual work or look for short-term work. You can also look on some of the very popular job websites like seek.com.au, mycareer.com.au, career1.com.au. These websites and many more. You can find jobs on some of these platforms. And of course, a few weeks ago, we talked about, the biggest way of finding things is asking a friend. You can never go wrong by asking someone who's been down the road. Our guest the other day, last week, told us about meeting someone and how this person pointed her into the right direction and hooked her up with a job, and she was so grateful. So it's really important for us to make use of the networks that we have, and to basically remember that, while we are out here, we're not alone. You're not alone. There are many of us who have walked the walk and talked the talk before. Some of us, we have been discouraged and, and we have had a helping hand to get up, but we never stayed down. And, we look back now and we can smile at how we made it through. Wow, we have come to the end of the program this evening. And as I do every week, I've got to leave you with my special song, Don't Give Up. Whatever you are going through, whatever challenges you might be facing, you might be feeling discouraged and you might actually feel like giving up and going back home. But I want to encourage you, like I was encouraged, don't give up. It will be worth it if you stick to the task at hand and finish the course, because one day you will smile and you will be thanking your lucky stars. You'll be thanking God for seeing you through to the end of your journey. Wow. We have come to the end of our program. And I thank you for joining me and Pastor Eben in the studio this evening, talking about students working in Australia. I want to remind you that we are on air every Tuesday at 6 p.m. right here on Down Under Radio. And I'm telling you, you don't want to miss next week's program, because I am going to be telling you all about how it all began. So make a date. Join me in the studio and you will be sharing with me on a special birthday edition of My Career, My Calling. See you next week, Tuesday, 6 p.m. right here on Down Under Radio.